Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to the Professional Pastors Broadcast, where God's power and word is revealed. Pastor Diane Winbush, Senior Pastor of St. Petersburg Global Ministries, brings over 25 years of experience in ministry through God's apostolic and prophetic teaching. You will mature and grow in the Word of the Lord through tools, teachings, and resources from this ministry. Now, let's go to the broadcast.
And good morning, listeners, and welcome to the Professional Pastors. We're so thankful that you tuned in with us on today. And so don't forget about our luncheon that we have that's coming up on the 27th, our Women's Empowerment Luncheon, and that's going to be located at 4845 Cuba Millington Road, and that's Millington, Tennessee, zip code 38053. And our speaker for that event will be Pastor and Dr. Sharon Webb, and so do not forget about that, and the time for that is at 10 o'clock, and you can go to our website to get more details and information. So today we have with us on the podcast today is Miss Sonia Frontera, if I'm pronouncing that right, and she is our guest, and she's thank you. And so she's going to be discussing a lot of things with us. A lot of times when we, as Christian women, women of faith, we struggle in our relationship because sometimes when we're at church, we're always meant to look, we're taught to, look tough and, we can beat the devil and all of that, but we go through challenges as well in our relationships and in our marriage, and so that's the reason why she's here today, to help us to be able to see things as, as the Holy Spirit gives her, as to how she counsel and teach other women to be able to be successful and triumph. So welcome to the show, Sonia.
Good morning. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Great. And so tell us a little bit about you.
Well, I am a woman who wears many hats. I am a practicing family attorney, and I am also an empowerment trainer and an advocate for domestic violence victims. And I am very concerned with women's issues, and I like to empower and inspire women so they can live their best lives and lives of freedom and fulfillment. I just recently published a book entitled Solve the Divorce Dilemma. Do you keep your husband or do you post him on Craigslist? And I'm finding that writing is my true passion. And I'm really enjoying the process.
Okay, awesome. So before you became a divorce attorney, what was your everyday pattern as? What led up from to where you were before to where you are now?
I had been practicing law for about 17 years. I was a government attorney, and because of an illness, I had to retire from litigation practice, and I decided to start my own practice. So I was recommended to try collaborative law, which is a model of family law, divorce law, which is different from litigation in which the parties agree on having a very friendly divorce in advance so that they can advance their interests and the interests of the children and the family as a whole. So that's how I got into that area of family law. And while I was on a retreat, a women's retreat, it was about forgiveness, this retreat, and I noticed that a lot of the issues many of the women in the retreat had were associated with their marriages and their divorces, and some bitterness associated with the dynamics of the marriage and the things that happened during the divorce. And it was at this point that I felt inspired to write a book to help women. I wasn't sure in which direction, but as I started writing it, it just kept taking shape as the book is now. So that's where I went from being a government attorney to being a writer. I had been doing empowerment training and domestic violence advocacy as a volunteer, and I had done it in different capacities for different nonprofits as well as in court. So I had been doing all these things, and they just converged into where I am right now. And I also do empowerment training in retreats and workshops.
Awesome. So in your terms, why do you think women of faith are unhappy in their marriage? So let me say this before you answer that. A lot of times we can turn on the television, we can see the congregation sitting there, they're singing, and the husband and wives are sitting beside each other, and they seem like they got the perfect best marriage that's on the planet of the earth. But sometimes women may struggle when they go home. So in your terms of what the experience that you have had with women, why do women struggle, women of faith struggle the way that they do?
Well, I think we have to start at why we get married. And my take on it is that we go into marriage with a certain set of expectations and a lot of different messages that we receive from society, like our church, our parents, our teachers. And we go into marriage with a certain set of expectations. And I would go as far as quoting Father Anthony de Mello, who says people are born in their sleep, live in their sleep, get married in their sleep, and die in their sleep without ever waking up, because we are conditioned to think a certain way. So in many instances, we get into our marriages not realizing why we're getting into our marriages or what our expectations are about what a marriage should look like. And when things don't work out according to that pattern or do not fulfill that pattern, we tend to become unhappy and disappointed. And we don't know why, because very often we're playing by the rules. We're doing what we were told to do. After a certain age, it's about time you get married and have a family and have children, and that's going to make you happy. And then you find yourself, well, things are not so rosy. Why is that? And that's why I think it's really important to develop that awareness. But for the woman of faith in particular, and I'm speaking for myself, it is a lot harder because you are trained to think it is wrong to divorce. And that as a woman of faith, we are supposed to keep the marriage together no matter what. So that puts an added stress for the woman of faith.
I absolutely agree, because a lot of times Christian women, we don't want people to see that we have challenges, we face obstacles, we faced boundaries, and I'm speaking of myself as well. And sometimes and sometimes it can be the smallest things, which is leading me up to the next question. Sometimes it can be the smallest things that can be able to cause individuals to disagree. So from your experience with your clients, or with the mission that you have of teaching and training women, what are some steps that we can take to not to overthink things? So, sometimes we can overthink things. And sometimes you'll see people, they'll go to divorce court for the smallest little thing. And after you think about it, it wasn't really that bad as I thought it was,
Yes, you're right. I think everything, absolutely everything, boils down to awareness. And what I advocate is that you need to be aware of how you're thinking and where your thoughts are coming, they're coming from, and what triggers them. And I'm not suggesting you overthink it. I think very often we overthink things, and we create these stories around what's happening to us. And what was a little thing, like a minor incident, you blow it out of proportion. And we have these stories, and if you really pay attention, they're recurring stories. Like something that your husband does to you triggers something in you that makes you blow it up and try to overthink, where did this come from? What is he trying to say to me, when in fact it might have been a completely innocent exchange.
Absolutely.
So you need to give it the appropriate amount of thought, but not overthink it.
Absolutely. So now we're going to kind of even still talking about women of faith, because a lot of times we may see certain scenarios that are played out in television. We see certain scenarios that are played out in other individuals' relationships in their lives, but they are still being played out in women of faith as well. So in regards to because a lot of times, as me myself being a pastor, a lot of individuals they go through, and you hear a lot of stories, and so sometimes you don't want to get too involved with other individuals' issues, and so sometimes it can be the in-laws that can trigger some things off into individuals' relationships and in their marriages and what have you. And so I have led individuals to Matthew 19:4, don't let no man put asunder. So can in-laws be a reason for separation and divorce?
Oh, absolutely. And in many different forms. We very often have the scenarios where the parents have an expectation of what their children's marriage should be like, and they interfere. I remember growing up, the mothers-in-law, grandmothers, I tended to be very critical of the mothers, especially when you find like the generations are different, especially mothers-in-law who are homemakers and do not like when the daughters-in-law are working outside of the home and they have to, take certain shortcuts or the way the household is handled is different. So you find some tensions in that regard. Oh, well, my son is used to having, a square meal every day, or my husband and I did this way. I don't like the way you treat my son. So you see a little bit of that. I think a part of it can be generational. It can also be associated with other cultural factors, especially where the parties might come from different backgrounds, and it's kind of hard to adjust. And then I guess parents always want what's best for their kids, and they feel that they may have the right to butt in and give in their perspectives on things, when in fact I think it's best for the couple to work those things out on their own without parental interference. So when you have in-laws who are very hands-on in the relationship, that can be a source of stress for sure.
Okay, absolutely. I agree. So in regards to still talking about in-laws, so in your terms, why do in-laws feel because we're trying to cover all the areas, and we're trying to cover all the bases of this woman of faith, simply because of the fact so they can make sure that they have all the tools and resources that they need to be able to go back, not to criticize their spouses about or their wives, because men listen to the podcast as well. It's not just for women, but in regards to they can go back and apply what they have heard today back to, and sometimes you don't have to say anything. Sometimes it may just take a process for, as the listeners. I mean, all of us. I've been married. I'm married now, and been married for 31 years. But you can apply what you have heard, listeners, back to your relationships as women of faith. So, from experience with your clients, Sonia, why do you feel that some in-laws have a need to move in with their children while both of them are being married? The parents are married, and they move in with their children that is married. In certain cultures, and also in certain ethnicities, certain people do certain things different ways, and some individuals may feel that is comfortable, and some individuals may feel that that's more like a smothering mechanism for the relationship. So in your terms, why do you think in-laws may feel that they have a need to move in with their children?
Well, I think you hit it in the nail in the head. I think many times it is cultural, and there is an expectation that the wife is going to move in with the husband. I know that's very common in Eastern European cultures. I personally was married to an Eastern European man, and he was also very close to his family. So there is this expectation in some families that the wife is going to move in with the parents, or that the parents are going to move in with the son, because in some cultures the son is the one who takes care of the parents, and it might be the daughter in other cultures. So very often you're going to have that type of blended family, and it could really lead to serious problems, especially when the in-laws feel that as the elders they're the ones who should be in charge of how the household is run. and when they are the ones establishing the rules. And I can tell you that would feel very invasive to an adult child to have somebody else tell you how you're going to live your house, how are you going to live your life, or what your household is going to be like, how the meals are going to be prepared, how the children are going to be raised, which can also be a very big source of conflict.
Absolutely.
So for the woman of faith, it has to be even more difficult because you want to be pleasing to God, and you want to make sure that you're acting out of love. And sometimes the feelings that these interference from the in-laws can have might make you feel like you're not acting out of love and you're not living, what Jesus taught. So that can definitely be a problem and very difficult. Just the thought of living with adult parents telling me what to do makes me very antsy because I moved out of home because I wanted to be independent. Oh, my God. I can't imagine, being a grown-up being told what to do.
I cannot fathom, Sonia. I cannot fathom that. I mean, I'm not going to say that my heart goes out to individuals. Some people can be able to get along with that. Even as I watch House Hunters is a very popular television show. I watch it all the time, mostly. And so you'll see the couples in there, finding, they're disagreeing. And I know it's a reality show, but still it's something to think about because sometimes they'll disagree even on the show. Because they're trying to find, houses that have, in-law capabilities or capacity to or what have you. And I'm like, no, just pick the right house. It does not have anything to do. And so I think, which is going to be my next question to you. I'm not going to think anything. I'm going to let you respond to this question.
Okay.
Is it healthy? Is it healthy to set up boundaries when you're in a relationship and before you say the I do and run down the aisle and you get the rice thrown in your face? I had rice thrown in mine a long time ago. And so when you get the rice thrown in your face, is it healthy to set up boundaries when it comes down to in-laws?
Boundaries are healthy, period. With respect to in-laws, no. And boundaries may get a bad rap, but they're necessary because when you establish the terms of engagement with other people and what is healthy and what is acceptable and what isn't, then there's less of a chance of crossing the line, at least unintentionally. When people know what you expect out of a relationship and how you're going to interact with one another, then you're more likely to have a peaceful interaction. So, yes, I agree wholeheartedly that you do need the boundaries and that they are very healthy and that if they are established and respected, people can get along much, much better and conflict will be minimized.
Great response. And so in regards to women of faith, women of faith, we are all, when we're Christian women, we're women of faith because we read our Bible and we believe that God is everything and more than that of what He has stated and placed in the Word of God. So sometimes why do you feel, a lot of times women, we have positions, we have roles, we have responsibilities, but when it comes down to relationships, sometimes some women, I heard this one lady saying in a salon one day, said just because we're saved, that doesn't mean that people are supposed to run over us like a doormat. And so in your terms and because and from, your training that you have given to so many women, why do you think women feel that they're less valued as women of faith because they feel that they don't have to, the word is not vindicate, but why do you think that we have to take the back seat sometimes, even when we're trying to speak up, speak out, or make a notation to a specific type of topic or a subject, even in our homes? Some women, they do not. I have seen, Sonia, in so many cases where women, they are afraid because they don't have a 9-to-5 job. They don't have a 9-to-5 job, and so since the husband is the breadwinner, they feel that they have to sit there and they don't have to they can't make any input. I mean, I've seen some things where some women do not make don't make any at all. They're afraid to make the input. So as women of faith, do we have that that type of I guess it's not control, but do we have that? Should we be in there being able to, in a nice, kind way where we can be vocal in our own homes?
Oh, absolutely. And this, again, goes back to the patterns that we get in society, because we are often told that we need to be feminine and that we need to be delicate and that we do not raise our voices and that the man is the king of the household and that we are to be subservient and make them happy. And it is all women in all societies, regardless of religion, we're all getting messages from our social groups. But for the woman of faith, it is even more intensified because, especially, certain sects are more likely to tell women to be subservient. But I think it's the way the word subservient is used might be really a misnomer, might be misapplied. I think we all need to be kind to one another and to work as a team, as opposed to one person doing it all and the other person just being the passive person. And I think we get the impression that we're supposed to be passive. And I'll tell you, this is something that really impressed upon me. And I was a very young woman. I was in my early 20s. I went to my gynecologist, and he was in his late 70s. He was practicing way too late in life. And he gave me one of the best nuggets of marital wisdom I ever got. He said to me, Sonia, marriage is not 50-50. Marriage is 80-20 sometimes, 60-40 sometimes, 30-70 sometimes. And that is so important. We are a team, and sometimes we help each other out in different ways, and we just need to be willing and able to step in and do what's necessary. So as women, just because we might be staying in the home and we might be financially dependent from our husbands, we have our value. We are children of God with God's talents and abilities and gifts that we were brought here to bring forth into the world. So instead of remaining passive, we need to be an active part of our marriages and be able to contribute. So if you think your being a homemaker has no value, think again. As a matter of fact, just very, very recently, the courts in Argentina declared that housework is a valuable marital asset. What do you think about that?
Oh, wow.
So, yes, we have value. And whether or not we're homemakers or breadwinners, we are a team, and that's how we need to interact with one another.
Absolutely. So even with that, we're from the South, actually, from the United States of the South, and so you see more domestic mothers or Christian women and what have you, and so that's the reason why I try not to invite individuals to certain events that perhaps I may hold. I try to open it up to the registration, and so that will let me know exactly who's interested and who's not interested. And so I just think that the podcast will be able to bring a little light to the Christian women of faith as their roles and their responsibilities and their duties. Some people have issues with, we don't supposed to be running a business as women of faith. Of course you do, but some people, it's a cultural thing, as you stated before, it can come from the background. And so that's, while I'm here, and I'm pretty sure it's hundreds and millions of other Christian podcasts that are doing the same thing, trying to empower Christians, trying to let them know where they can be successful in God. So we're going to switch a few gears here, still talking about women of faith, but we're going to switch to the side where we're talking about blended families. And when we talk about blended families, we're talking about individuals that perhaps maybe bring children into the marriage and relationship without the couple sitting down to discuss. So that's going to be the next portion of our segment, and we're going to take a commercial break right quick, and we will be right back with Ms. Sonia Frontera on The Professional Pastors.
Not yet.
In 60 seconds, make moments sweeter. New Betty Crocker Quick Cake Mix. Just add milk and microwave for 60 seconds for a warm, delicious cake. The joy of cake in 60 seconds.
Picturesque Gig Harbor, Washington is the site of this year's HGTV Dream Home 2018. This contemporary house is situated right on the water in a setting that can only be described as stunning. Competing with Mother Nature out here is no small feat, so I've created a backyard that's all about comfortable seating and amazing views. There's a built-in fire pit area with plenty of seating. The same two-tone gray paver stones lead to the covered porch, where a group of 6 can enjoy some shade or cook up dinner with a built-in grill. A few steps away is a waterfront dining area which seats a crowd. A retractable pergola is great for the Pacific Northwest climate. Just above, there's a second dining area that's right off the kitchen, because it's good to have options. Contemporary glass panels wrap the decks for unobstructed views. There's one more outdoor space you have to see. Take these steps down to the water's edge for a close-up look of Henderson Bay. Aside from the calm water, this backyard is a nature lover's dream.
And we're back on the Professional Pastors with Ms. Sonia Frontera. Thank you so much for being our guest on today, as well as thank you for the listeners participating in today's podcast and session. So with our next segment, we're going to be talking about blended families, and this is in regards to women, Christian women of faith, as well as we can also add an additional to men of faith. And this is in regards to sometimes we take in family members, extra individuals that are in our family, that's a part of our family, but we never sit down and discuss in regards to how this can be able to affect the husband or the wife or both in the marriage. So welcome back, Ms. Sonia Frontera, to the Professional Pastors.
Thank you.
And so in regards to blended families, Sonia, what do you see in your terms as helping individuals through relationships, through your teachings and through your seminars and what have you? What do you see the most when it comes to women of faith when in regards to blended families, bringing children into the relationship? How successful have you seen the outcome of it? And share with us some challenges that you have perhaps may have seen with some of your clients in regards to blended families.
Well, actually, Diane, I'm in a blended family situation myself.
Okay.
Yes, after my divorce, I remarried. I remarried a Christian man, and he had a child from his previous marriage. What is most important is, number one, we have to acknowledge blended families are a fact of life. And if the person you're married to has children from a previous relationship, you really have to have it in your heart to do your best to make it work out. And I think what's really, really important is communication. Like you said, talk before you get married. These are things that need to be addressed in advance. Very often, things do not get addressed because you do not want to rock the boat. But it's probably best to have that honest, heart-to-heart conversation at the onset. Children need to understand that, you know, the new parent or the new spouse is not the mother. It's in a mother role, but not in a maternal role, but not trying to replace the mother. And that the person needs to be treated with the same respect and love as the parent. And the spouse who's the parent of the child also needs to make it clear to their children that the stepmother is an authority figure in the family and that needs to be treated with love and respect as well. I think these conversations are really key to the success of a blended marriage. And as the adult, the new spouse needs to understand that they need to be setting the example and setting the tone. And praying God for the strength and the courage to deal with the difficult situations that may come up, that first of all, parents have with their own children, and these situations can be even a little bit more challenging when you're dealing with somebody else's children. You can also expect there might be some tension where you have the other parent trying to create dissent in the ex-spouse's new marriage. So you might find that the ex-spouse might be a source of conflict or turning the child against the new wife. So it is really important for the new couple to stay together as a team and support each other out in these difficult situations. I think, and this applies also, Diane, to the in-law situation. The spouses need to be a team and back each other up when somebody outside of the couple itself tries to create conflict.
Perfect.
So I think it's really, really key, not just to deal with the children, but the spouses themselves really need to talk to each other and what the expectations are about backing each other up and supporting each other up in living these roles as co-parents to children from previous relationships.
That's a perfect. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's the key to make these things work. And I'll give you an example. I used to be a wedding officiant as well, and one of the most dramatic weddings that we had involved a blended couple, and the couple had a very private ceremony with just their children, and each part of the husband and the wife, they both had been married before and had 2 children each from their previous relationship. The wife had 2 young children who were just delighted. They loved their new dad, and they were really excited. But then we had the older daughters, and you could tell the tension, they were not happy about it. So the bride, had an opportunity to speak during the ceremony, and she addressed the 2 adult stepdaughters beautifully. And I was in tears. And I don't cry at my own weddings. I was totally in tears because she spoke from the heart and said, I do not intend to replace your mother. I want to love you like my daughters, but I am not in here to just take your place or separate you from your dad. And that was so compelling and so touching and so mature from her end that the girls who were kind of tense when they first came in before the ceremony started, they started to melt, and their guards started to come down, and the atmosphere and the energy of the ceremony was completely transformed. And I don't have a doubt that made such a big impact on their marriage after the ceremony was over.
Absolutely, that is powerful because what it appears that she was doing, she was laying down the foundation from the start, and a lot of times that's just like what kind of example I can use if a dog decides to run behind the cat, he's not going to wait 6 months to do it. He's going to start immediately, and so apparently she was trying to set the atmosphere from the beginning, and I'm pretty sure that relationship between them have even grown even successful. I just think that some Christian women, some have not been taught, and as well as myself. I mean, I'm not going to put the light bulb on everybody else, but in some Christian cultures, it has not been shared with children as growing up as to how to maintain peace if there is a blended family, or if there are in-laws, or if there are issues that perhaps may be coming up or what have you, and things like that. With a brief story, a coworker that I had worked with some years ago, and so I think she had got divorced and got remarried again, and I think when she got remarried again, it wasn't with the father, and the first one was not the father either in the marriage, and so when the second one came along, they started to having issues as well, and so I think this is like a third or fourth marriage now, and although the daughter is grown at this time, but I think that the daughter has really suffered, down through the years simply because of the fact that the mother, the Christian woman, apostolic faith, she, they did not address it. She never addressed it with her daughter at a young age as to, what to expect out of a blended relationship. So I think the daughter kind of toiled back and forth down through the years because the mother always would change the atmosphere without sitting down to talk with the daughter. So I think that's very important of how we set that boundary, like the lady did, the bride, the Christian woman did in your scene that would happen. She went in there and she set the record straight from the beginning. And so if we talk and communicate, I think that it will relieve a lot of tension, when it comes to relationships, because, Christian women, a lot of times they feel that they don't have anyone to be able to go to or turn to because the culture is not abreast as to how to come in and bring certain tools and resources and certain knowledge to their own family members. I guess I can say it like that, basically.
Yeah, you're spot on, Diane. And I think it has to do with the church culture, especially where divorce is frowned upon. And if divorce is frowned upon, the issues that stem out of divorce are not addressed because they're not part of the culture. If you're supposed to get married and stay married, then there's no guidelines for what happens if the marriage breaks down and if another relationship is entered into later. So there's really no role models or directives or guidelines of how you interact if your marriage ends and you enter into another relationship. And until you heal those wounds, you will not be able to go forward and recreate a different reality. Until the wounds of the past are not healed, you will be recreating the same situations. If you don't learn your lessons as you go along, you will keep repeating the same mistakes until you do get that lesson.
Absolutely. I think I saw the daughter, and it was the mother too. The daughter, the mother, and it may have was the new husband or something like that at a Christian outing. And so she's all grown up now. She's 18 or 19 or something like that. But I sat there and I began to still reminisce over some of the challenges that the daughter had to go through while the mother was making decisive choices about her relationship and how many came through. And even though marriage is, the scripture teaches us it's better to marry than to burn. Okay, of course. But if you're still taking the same things over and over into the next marriage and you have not been delivered from the first marriage and the first relationship, not only are you going to go through the same thing, the daughter is going to go through. If it's a son that the woman of faith has, if he's a son, he's going to sit there and watch certain things and stuff. And so it's going to, as you stated, it's going to continue to repeat itself. So that's when she was singing a song at this Christian outing. The daughter was singing a song, and she began to cry and things. And I just kept seeing that and not trying to judge the mother, but I continued to see something. I'm like, I don't think that you still are healed yet from the past relationships from your mother.
And that it carries on not only in the mother's relationships, but the damage that is done in some way is going to affect the daughter's relationship, which she's an adult and she's having her own relationships.
Wow.
All that hurt is going to extend itself and perpetuate itself in one form or another. We cannot tell how it's going to be in any particular case, but you can be sure that hurt that is unhealed is going to show up in some way.
Absolutely. I do agree. In regards to blended families, we're still talking about blended families. I have seen, Sonia, from experience, not my own experience, but I have seen from experience where sometimes in regards to blended families, sometimes the children, they resent the parents later on down the road. I mean, I have stepchildren myself, and but somehow we kind of got along. We did. I didn't have any type of jealousy or anything towards my husband's sons or anything like that. But I tried to make sure, at least I thought I did, to try to dot the I's and cross the T's, because I wouldn't want no one to come back and mistreat, me in the same manner. So even in regards to that, can Christian women just let go when it comes to? I mean, some things, women of faith, is some things we're not going to be able to change, especially if we love the individual. We love the individual's wife, or I mean, not the wife, but we love the individual's mother, or we love the individual's father. Can Christian women just let go? Just let go.
Mhm. Well, letting go is important, and it's the road to healing, really. You need to let go of resentments and of patterns of thought and action that might get you into trouble. So you need to go inside and turn to God and listen to the still small voice within to guide you as you're going through all these challenges. And not hang on to resentments. And again, like we were talking about earlier, do not turn them into stories. Analyze things as they are instead of creating stories. Like, the kid did something, he hates me, he's trying to separate me from dad, and just blow it up into something major. Just try to still yourself and try to find out, where is this coming from and how can I address it like a Christian, with love, coming from a place of love.
Absolutely. We only have about 3 minutes left, and we certainly want to get into this last segment in regards to your book release. We want you to share with the listeners some takeaways that you would expect them to see when purchasing your book. And then the last question, you can just lead on into the last one and let the listeners know how they can be able to connect with you. If that's something of an option for them to do, how can they purchase your book, and where can they find your book?
All right. The book was written for women who are unhappily married, and it can help anyone who's in a relationship. And I have even been told by clergy that even helps couples that are looking to get into a relationship. The takeaway you can get from this book is you have what it takes to create a life of freedom and fulfillment within or without your marriage. If you are unhappy in your relationship, go within, do self-reflection, and try to find out what are the reasons why your relationship is not working. If it isn't, try to work things out, and if they cannot work out as a couple, then you can recreate your life any way you want it, with or without your husband. It is all a matter of being reflective. There are different areas of reflection throughout the book. So that will guide you to find the answers on your own in your own heart, because you have the answers when you turn to God, and He will reveal to you the way. Pray and turn to God, and you will receive the answers that will help you create the life that was meant for you. So you can I will guide you through the process, whether you decide to stay married or whether you decide to divorce, so you can be happy and live the life you were meant to live in this world. The book is available widely. It's available on Amazon, Kindle. It's available Barnes & Noble online. It is also available through my website, where readers can connect with me. It is SoniaFrontera.com. That is www.SoniaFrontera.com. And the book can also be purchased directly through the website at a discount, through the website itself. And I also love to hear from readers. So anyone who would like to reach to me can do so through the website or at SoniaFrontera.com. I would love to hear from you and find out what you think about the book and about your marital experience.
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, we have had Sonia Frontera on the broadcast with us today. She has given us an amazing and stunning interview of struggling, how women struggle, women of faith, and, who has had an unhappily marriage, and how to stay true to your vows. And then we've talked about blended families. We've talked about in-laws. We've talked about how we can let certain things go. Take the tools and resources that she has given you so you can be able to be successful in your marriage. For all upcoming events, you can go to our website at www.stpetersburgglobalministries.org. Thank you so much, Sonia, for being our guest on today.
Thanks for having me, Diane.
Thank you.